1. We'll give it a second, make sure we can share it out before we get started.
Oh, there we are.
All right. So Jonathan, go ahead and take a second. Share that out if you would. We'll share it and then we'll.
Yeah, I'm still looking for it.
Sarah said, I see it now too. I just now got it.
Refresh.
All right. Jonathan, while you're trying to find the feed to share it, I'll go ahead and start. All right. So, hey, thanks so much for all of you that are watching or will soon be watching with us. This is Brett Wilson, Camp Director of Mount Hope Bible Camp with Sarah, joining me by my side today. And if you have joined us any this month, you know that this month has been kind of our missionary month at Mount Hope. We have been interviewing online via Zoom some missionaries that have been with us at Mount Hope, most of which probably have been there since around 2012 or so. The Louders, I guess, maybe a few years before that, but just trying to reconnect with some missionaries and kind of see where they are on the field. And so we have 7 interviews that we've already done. All of those are housed on our website, our app, or on our Facebook page. But today is actually our final Missions Hour interview for this month. And honestly, as you can probably guess, we are getting ready to change seats. Sarah and I are going to be the ones that are going to be interviewed by our camp board president, Jonathan King. And so with that, I'm going to pass things over to him and kind of let him lead the interview. But as always, if you have a question that you would like to have us answer live, just make them easy. That's all I'm asking. You can put them in the comments of the Facebook Live, or you can send them to my email, Brett, which is BRETT, at MountHopeBibleCamp.com. And we'll pass those along to Jonathan, or he's watching as well. And then he can send those over to us. So with that, I'll pass things over to Jonathan.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I think it's still morning. I suggested to Brett and Sarah that I just answer the questions for them in their place. But we kind of come to the conclusion that would probably get us all in trouble. So we will try to stick to the format that Brett has been sharing with for the last several weeks. And those have been very enlightening. And for me, they've been a joy to watch. Some of them you're like, yeah, they really wanted to say something else. So today we're hoping that they actually say exactly what well, maybe not exactly what they say, but for the most part. So we're going to start out with asking them what their testimony is, and just a little bit different maybe from some of the other formats. I would kind of like for each of you to share what the decision looked like to follow Christ, and then the process from the time that you made that commitment to where you are today being in ministry. So we'll start with, I'll let you guys pick which one wants to go first and kind of go from there.
I'll go first. So I was raised in a Christian home, sang with my sisters and my mom all growing up. But I decided to follow Jesus right here at Mount Hope Bible Camp when I was 8 years old. And so I grew up in church, and I always thought I knew, what I needed to do, the do's and don'ts. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that I really started understanding. And I worked here at camp, and we had missions hour, and that's where I met the Strange family. And it was then that I really felt like, hey, this could be a thing for me, like to be in missions. So when I was 19 years old, that is when I would say that I really got serious with the Lord. Like I made it my own, you know what I mean? Like growing up, I always tried to do my very best, but when I was 19 years old, I decided to make it my own. And I went on a missions trip, and it was all that year that I just decided, hey, I'm going to really, have a relationship with Jesus and do it on my own, not rely on my family. And I'm going to look into what missions will look like. So at 19, I went on a missions trip, and then knew that I needed to finish college. So in the midst of all of that, I got married and had a baby. And so for me right now, missions looks a little different than what I had imagined when I was 19. But I'm still doing the ministry. I'm still working with kids. I'm still, because when I went to the Philippines on a missions trip, that's what I did. I got to be with the little kids and, sing songs about Jesus with them, and just really be with the children. And so now I get to teach in a public school, but in the summers I get to be here at camp and just be right in there with the kids and in that ministry. So.
Yeah. And so for me, my story with Jesus, I guess kind of really started when I was 7, but really, I guess even before that, I was attending church at Otway, I guess before I was born. But kind of just grew up knowing the stories and everything else that goes along with that. But when I was 7 at a vacation Bible school at Otway, Suter, I don't know, there was just something about the way he just kind of really painted that picture of what it meant to follow Jesus. And again, I was 7. I don't think I completely understood all of it, but I did know that it was more than just a prayer, even though I think that was what maybe kind of launched me, that it was more than that. And so, but what helped me come to that understanding was having people come alongside of me in discipleship. Suter would be the first one. And honestly, I think that moment when I was 7 kind of really just started that connection. I've shared in the Wise Words posts that Suter became my prayer partner. And so those conversations really helped me grow. Then here at camp, when I was 14, I started taking the training. And so Jody then kind of stepped into a role that helped disciple me as well. When I was a junior in high school, I felt like God was calling me to start preaching and speaking. And then Lawrence Rhodes kind of stepped into that role. And then even in college, I had Neil Skiles. And all throughout those years, I had people that I really felt like was just really, truly investing in me and trying to teach me that following Jesus is more than just a prayer. It is a daily choice to choose him and walk his ways. But as far as missions is concerned and kind of like leading into that, I may kind of abbreviate it because I'm going to use it for a future Wise Words. But Suter connected me with a missionary in Zaire, Africa. And I think I was around 10 or 11 years old. I can't remember completely. But he had given me the name. I think actually the guy, Lee Fields is his name. I think he was actually local from Southern Ohio. But he went to Zaire, Africa as a missionary. And Suter and Mary Margaret Freeman gave me his address, and I started writing him. And I would give him my $10 for allowance or something and write him a letter. And he took the time to write back. And I think for me, that was just the engagement that I needed to really move forward in missions and just really find a love for it. And so, like Sarah said, then in 2007, we got married. And I don't know, I guess you want us to just continue moving that direction, Jonathan?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So then in 2007, I started teaching at Northwest Elementary School as a music teacher. And then in 2012, that's when we were called and asked if we would step into this role at camp. And I guess even really before that, in 2008, we were kind of like maybe testing the waters.
We were interns.
Yeah, we were kind of, was it interns or partners or I don't know what it was called, but something like that.
I was pregnant with Kai.
That's right. That's right. Out here, right?
Out here
Yeah.
at Bible camp for 5 weeks.
In one of the staff house rooms. Yeah, that was fun.
One week in a camper.
But we were just, and I think what I've kind of heard from all the other missionaries is that's a must for any missionary considering, is just kind of jump in and test the waters and see if God confirms it. And I think even though 2008 wasn't exactly the right timing for us at that moment, I think it definitely still kind of led us to the moment in 2012 when we could say yes. And then later in 2014, then I quit my job and started here full time. So I guess that maybe that answers your question, Jonathan, as far as testimony and moving to the call.
So in that transition so you were both teachers, in the transition from going from teaching and probably a shift to the American dream, from this is what we want to this is what we're being called to do, what did that look like, and what was the biggest adjustment maybe you faced at that transition, and then what does that adjustment look like, or what challenges come with that today compared to maybe what you had planned?
Yeah,
I can start with that because
Okay.
I still am teaching, and I just have to learn. I'm learning, I'm content with that, to be able to teach and then be with missions also. But when we first started, I think that we were just getting set in our American dream, so to speak. I had a job, Brett had a job, we had just bought a house. And so we were pretty set. And then we're like, Brett's like, I really think that it's time for us to do this. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of resistant because I'm like, but we just bought our house. Like we can't move. Like we just bought this. So for a couple years, each summer we would pack up our house and come to camp. So I think that was a little bit difficult, to let go of. But then once we realized, hey, this is really what God wants us to do, it's time to move. We moved into the camp house and then decided to sell our house. So because I'm like, but we just.
Yeah, and I think for me, sorry. And I think for me, when you ask that question, 2 words come to mind, and that is schedule is one, and then being alone. I guess that's 2 words. Being alone. Those are the 2 things for me that have been the biggest adjustments. All my life since I was in kindergarten until 2014, I have been on a school schedule. Like that's been my life. And so every Monday morning all the way through Friday afternoon, right? That's just been my life. And when I came to camp, that was a big transition. Like I get to make my own schedule, but yet I've got all these tasks that have to get done, and trying to manage that well and efficiently. It was just a big adjustment. And I think along with that is most of the time throughout the year, I'm working a lot by myself. Not all the time, but I mean, whether it's kind of planning social media posts, working on the website, or mowing the grass, or cleaning up after an event, or preparing for an event, or whatever else. There's a lot of that. And so that has been a really big struggle for me. Not this spring, but the spring before, I just really felt like I was kind of in that hole. And that was a big season for me to kind of really start scheduling meetings with pastors, just trying to make connections and kind of balance that alone time with trying to work with others. And so that would, speaking very transparently, that would be the 2 biggest adjustments, I think for me, that I'm honestly still in progress with.
Okay. And you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about the discipleship portion and how in each stage of your walk with Christ, you had a mentor or someone to come in. But what other advice, including that, would you give someone who felt that God may be calling them or leading him or her into full-time ministry or even bivocational ministry?
I would say just try it. Because you're not going to know unless you give it a go. That's what I think.
And I guess I'm copying off the others. I'm interview 8, right? So I can steal from everybody else. One of the things that I know, I think it was the Williams and maybe even the Louders. No, I take that back. It was, who did we just interview on Tuesday?
Berkey.
Yeah, the Berkeys. They said, be flexible. And I think if you have that mindset that you are willing to be flexible and that you are willing to try it, I would agree that I think every one of our missionaries we've interviewed has said short term, go on a short-term trip, do an internship, do something, get your feet wet into missions. I mean, honestly, we call it missions, but it should just be like being a Christian, right? Following Jesus, like loving people. So go get out and do something. Instead of just talking about it. And then I honestly think that you're going to get the confirmation as you move forward, one way or the other. He may say, no, we got another direction for you or another path for you. But I do think, like, in the midst of that, you have to have that mindset or attitude to be flexible and to be usable. That is just, that's key in being a missionary and making things work. Because one of the things that we kind of really struggled with in 2008, In Faith came to our house, our little cracker box of a house. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I think that question in my mind, it paralyzed me. Like, no. I thought you were going to tell me what I was supposed to do. And that kind of rocked my world as far as what missions looks like, is missions can really look like anything. Mm-hmm. And so if something doesn't work, being flexible enough to say, okay, that just doesn't work. Let's jump in. Let's do this. And I think if you can have that attitude and you're willing to try it, I think confirmation will come along the way. Be prayerful, seek godly counsel from other people and his word. And I think if you take all those pieces collectively, I think you'll find your answer.
I would agree with that. We shared earlier, I had a pastor friend who was asked about being called in the ministry, and his answer was, well, the question was, what do you do if you feel like you're being called? And he said, run. And I'm standing beside him thinking, what? Is he going to say run to God? And he was like, no, run as fast as you can. And he was like, God will bring you back if that's what it was supposed to be. And while I disagree with that a little bit, I do understand what he was talking about, because a lot of times people will look at ministry or look at preaching or missions, and they're like, oh, wow, it's all, roses. And it's not. And what he was saying was, listen, if you run and that is where you're supposed to be, you can't get away from that calling that God is bringing in. And I guess my response to that is, if you feel like that God is calling you into some type of ministry, just say yes without limitations or structure, to say, I'll do it, and then wait for the next step. I think a lot of times that's what God is wanting, is yes. And so many times we say yes, followed by a whole line of limitations or restrictions or structure as to what it's supposed to look like. And, maybe today he wants you to be a missionary at Speedway while you're pumping gas, or, standing in line, well, not standing in line today, probably waiting in line at the drive-through, and the guy in front of you is on his phone whenever the next 3 cars has already went through, and you're not supposed to blow your horn. Politely tell him that and tell him Jesus loves him or whatever. So great answer. I appreciate that, and seeing that in both your lives as well. So tell us, now a lot of people who will be watching today know about Mount Hope, but there's going to be some who do not know about that. So tell us about maybe the demographic or the area there, and who specifically you reach out to and serve as missionaries in Southern Ohio.
Well, we just had 2 people visit yesterday, and they were like, your country. You live in the country. So there you go. We live in the country.
That's true.
We got trees all around us.
Yeah.
But the people that we serve there's a vast array
Yeah.
Okay. We have, the majority of people that we serve are children, of course, ages 6 to 18. And even them, even those children are a vast array. You have some who have grown up in church that know all the Bible stories. And you have some, when they walk on this campground, it's the first time that they ever heard the name of Jesus. So you have some who come from really great backgrounds, and you have some who they come here so they can eat. So it is just, and I feel like that's our staff job, is to find out, what does that child need this week? What can we help give them?
Yeah. And most of those kids come from kind of Scioto, Pike, Ross, and Adams is pretty much the counties. Now we had somebody come from California and Florida last year, I think, or year before. And we'll have a few come outside of that, but we're really kind of a local missions. Like, we're tackling Southern Ohio. That's who we're after. And while we do minister to a lot of the kids ages 6 to 18, like she said, I really kind of feel like Sarah and I's primary job is ministering to the staff that come onto our campgrounds. And that's typically around 125, 150 people a summer. And that is from, I can't even tell you how many churches.
Over 100.
Just a ton of different churches represented in our staff and our campers. But even outside of that, I guess, as far as talking about people that we minister to, you have the parents of the kids that come to camp, and as they're walking through, or as the kids take what they've learned back to their parents, or even in kind of our, what we call fellowship dinners, in our men's harvest dinner and our ladies luncheon, just an opportunity to kind of get area churches to congregate together. If we were just saying it very simply, it's Southern Ohio. But it's really, honestly, primarily it is kids. But I think our ministries are kind of hitting a lot of different people in a lot of different stages of life as well.
And I know when people hear Bible camp or church camp, there's a vision or a thought that comes in their mind, maybe from theirs, where they attended, and that can look very different from place to place. So give me just a snapshot of what a day at Mount Hope, when camp is in full swing, what that looks like. And then also maybe what your personal mission is as the camp director, as it pertains to the life of each of the campers that come. So I guess leading that maybe a little bit is, where do you want them to be when they leave versus when they come? And does it end when they leave, or where do you want them 5 years from now or whatever, in regard to your ministry?
So you answer the first one.
Okay. So as far as like what our schedule looks like, because, we have been here so many years, we might have it memorized.
just slightly.
Just slightly. Yeah. It has stayed the same for so many years. We've not changed anything hardly. So when they come, they know. If they've come year after year, then they know, oh, it's this time. So they wake up. Some might have a shower, some might just be getting their cabin clean. They have time alone with God. First thing, we put up the flag, we do our exercise, we have breakfast, we have Bible class, then we have recreation, then we have missions hour, then after that it's lunchtime. Then we have FOB, which is cabin leaders love that part, flat on bunk, it's a little nap time. Then we have more recreation, swim time and all that. Then we have an afternoon Bible class. Then after that, we have dinner, I believe. And then we have like slab time. That's question and answer time. So we encourage the kids that in all of their classes throughout the day and the evening to take notes, because at slab time, they're going to be asked questions where they can get points for their cabin. We have memory verse time. Then we give them a time to get ready for evening service. We take down the flag each night. We have evening service each night. We give them a snack time and entertain them with a little skit. Then they have Vespers, which is my personal favorite, because that's where we give the kids an opportunity to testify. which sometimes can be a little interesting, but for the most part, it is really a time where I think they have the courage and they build the courage to share. And then they finish their night with showers and a nightly cabin devotion, and then it's bedtime. So they have a lot of Bible times in there. They have a lot of times to meet with Jesus. And I think your question was, where do we see them going? So when they come, if they don't know Jesus, then we surely hope that by that Saturday morning that they have a relationship with Jesus. And then we, like, as a camp, feel like our job is, once they have that relationship with Jesus, we do have some discipling tools that we use. Like Brett leads a discipleship group. It's like a small group. But then we also, like, on our app, we're able to keep in contact, maybe not personally, but by sending out devotions. We will often find area churches. If they don't list a church, we'll find area churches and say, hey, you have this kid in your community, you could come in to, you should reach out to them so that we can make sure that they're in church. We do always make it known that Mount Hope isn't a church, we're a Bible camp. So our job is to make sure that they get a relationship with Jesus and know the basics, and then we send them back to their churches or help them find a church.
Yeah, I think that's really the big thing, is we want to introduce them to Jesus, and hopefully they make the decision to follow him, and then we're going to try to find some on ramp into discipleship. What we would really love is for all of our area pastors to be able to just have a great communication with them so that they can disciple them within the body of the local church. And then we just come on as an arm or an extension of what they're doing through our discipleship or D groups, and then even leadership training. Honestly, how I kind of see Mount Hope working, and how it's how it's worked for years, is you have campers that attended in the summer, and then a smaller group would jump in on weekend camps, and then maybe even a smaller group would jump in on staff and take leadership training. But then that staff, it just becomes more intimate discipleship as we move through that process. And I mean, I can't even tell you how many staff through the years have went on to serve in ministry in some capacity. I think our minds would be blown if we knew the reach that Mount Hope has had over the years. But honestly, personally, and I think even as a ministry, that's our ultimate goal, is not to leave somebody kind of as a baby Christian without being fed or moving forward. But ultimately, we'd love to see them turn around serving others. That's really what a disciple is somebody that they eventually become the discipler. And that's my hope for really everybody that steps on the grounds at camp.
And also for those who have already been to church and they already have, said, yes, I have a relationship with Jesus. I always challenge them, especially during Vespers, that, yes, you need to build the courage to testify. And yes, it's easier here in front of all of your friends your age. But I was just talking to a mom last week, and I said, really, here at camp, I tell them, how awesome would it be for when you go back to your church to stand up and testify? You're going to blow those adults' minds. So I always encourage them to do that, to, step up. And because I said, your church wants to see you testify. I know it can be scary, but so we always do encourage that too, for them to share their story.
As a local pastor, I know every year I look forward to the end of camp and getting a letter from Brett that says, here's the kids in your church. This is where they were, or where they said they were at the end. This is how you can help them, and maybe give me advice as a pastor as to how that week went and where they stand. And then there's always kids, hey, this is a kid in your community that listed that they don't have a church. And that's an opportunity for me to reach out and maybe plant a seed in ground that's already been tilled, or water a seed that had been planted through the week. And then it's interesting, on May 17th, I had a message, and I want to share this kind of along with that too. It says, for D groups, Brett challenged us to find 5 trusted adults in our church to act as our cabinet or people to keep us accountable. Will you please keep me accountable in my journey for Christ? I can't tell you as a pastor how awesome that is to have a teenager. Matter of fact, I think she's just turned 16, to say, hey, I need you to be accountable, to be my accountability partner and to help me with that walk. And so I would be honored. And so I look forward to that journey, but to have them to invite you into that. And that's a big part of discipleship. And I think that that's a key role for you, that you guys are doing in building those relationships as well. So we'll move on a little bit more. What is the best part that you think about being a missionary? And you didn't put these in the questions that you asked the other people, but if we're going to do a best part, we have to do the worst part too. So go ahead and tell me the best part of being a missionary. And I'm going to call you out on this if you don't tell the truth on the worst part. So go ahead.
Okay, what if our best part and worst part is kind of like hand in hand?
As long as it's transparent, I'm good.
Oh, it's transparent, I'm
Would you
sure.
like to say that?
I don't care.
He's trying to approve my answer first. Okay, at Mount Hope Bible Camp, we don't turn anybody away. Anybody, okay? Even if they have friends, we'll call them that. For the sake of being, I don't know. So I think the best part is when you have a camper come in that you know really needs love, and you are given that opportunity to take the time to invest in them. I mean, we're talking hours of investment, okay? It can be not fun sometimes, okay? Like, but, and I don't say this to brag, but there have been times where we've had campers come in that they come with what they have on, and we know they need so much love this week. So as camp directors, we feel it's our job to make them feel loved. So we, I mean, there have been times, I mean, don't get me wrong, we have awesome cabin leaders. I'm not saying we don't, but there's been time that I've pulled a cabin leader that said, hey, this week, this girl, she needs you. She needs you to show up this week. And they do every time. We have awesome cabin leaders that love Jesus. And so I would say that, there are campers that come that are hard, and they just need God to break them. And sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's not fun to be the camp director, because when everyone else is at their wits' end, they bring them to us and we're the last straw, and it's not fun. But then when you see the victory, then it makes it worth it, if that makes sense. Did I dance around it enough?
No, that was good. That was good.
Okay.
I honestly, my best part would be getting messages just like you shared, Jonathan. And I got a very similar message, and I'm hoping it's from the same person. So that's exciting. Seeing the results is what makes it worth it. I mean, if you missed our weekend that a few weeks ago, we did Mount Hope Sunday. If you missed watching those videos, you have got to go back and watch those videos. I'm just telling you, those videos is probably enough encouragement to last me for the year at least. All right. And then we'll have to have another set of videos. But hearing how God uses the ministry, and hearing, getting messages of encouragement or those kind of things, that's the best part of being a missionary, is being able to see the results. Now, I say that because sometimes you don't see it, or at least not immediately. And sometimes it takes years, upon years. I was just thinking about Destiny Ruth's story. It took her about 3 or 4 years to eventually really get in and decide. And so we were trying to water that through 3 or 4 years, but eventually now being able to see her call and accept that call moving forward in that, that's the best part of being a missionary. The worst part is, well, I think for me, like, can I change it to most difficult? Is that okay? Okay. Like, I think the most difficult for me is just having to know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a maintenance person. Like, everybody knows that, I think, right? Okay. Now, granted, I love learning, and I'm enjoying trying. All right. But I mean, that's kind of, at least in Mount Hope's position, where we have one missionary family. It's kind of like you have to be a jack of all trades, master of none. And that can be very stressful, I think, at times. Figuring out how to put a website together, from how to open a swimming pool to taking ServSafe licensure so you can run a kitchen, to recruiting staff. I mean, it really is the gamut. And while I enjoy it, I think the most frustrating part for me is knowing something needs done and not knowing how, or being able to connect with the right people at the right time to make it happen. And so I think that is, I think that's, again, I think it's, for me, it's just another work in progress of trying to figure out those balances of knowing what needs to be done and like can seeing forward, but it just gets stalled, or it's not coming as fast as what I'd hoped. And I think that's the frustrating part. But when it does, that's the best part.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I love when you can actually see fruits of your work. I know this week, I'll call him out. I guess I can. I got an email from Justin Brown asking if he could come and speak at our church as a missionary. And, you know, when I got the email, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Well, first I thought, what is Brett getting me into now?
Yep, you're right.
But after that, I thought this is awesome. And I remember some very specific days that Justin was at camp and was struggling and seeing victory beyond that. I remember him coming after one of the services. I was the evening speaker, and he was like, you hit me right between the eyes. Did you know? And he started going through some specific things that he was struggling with. And he was like, you had to have known that. And I was like, Justin, I had no idea. You know, I have been studying, preparing these messages for months, and tonight was the night for this one. But I said, what's important is not that it's not important that I knew what you was going through or didn't know, but the fact that God did 3 weeks ago and put this together, and then seeing him in that. And the difficult part of that is when you see people who, you know, that seeds have been planted, that they've been invested in. You know, the same day that I got the email from him, there was some information that came out of some of others that has been poured into that's going down the wrong path. And I think that that's ministry, our challenge as well. But yeah, great answers. Okay, so what? Let's see. What's your favorite thing? Let's do your favorite thing to do as missionaries, and then we'll go into what does a week look like. But we'll do your favorite thing first.
My favorite thing
as a missionary.
Do we have to pick just one?
I think mine would be just making the opening statement on one call. Hey, this is Brett Wilson, camp missionary at Mount Hope Bible Camp. Does that count?
I didn't ever think that would be your favorite thing, but as many times as I hear that, I believe it probably is.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, I think most people would probably believe that. Yeah, that's definitely not. But I don't know. I think just the atmosphere of camp. I think that's my favorite thing, of just being surrounded by so many people from so many different, even honestly, doctrinal differences that put them aside to focus on what matters. Just being a part of that is just like, let me just sit here and soak this in. I think that's my favorite part of just being a part of it. Not that I even, honestly, a lot of times even see us as leading it. Like, I just like we're a part of this. And I think that's just what makes it enjoyable, and probably my favorite part of being a part of this ministry.
I would say my favorite part is, oh my. Well, I said I really do like Vespers. I really like to hear the testimonies of the kids. But the last couple years, I would say probably my most favorite part has been, I love 8 and 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, I teach them all a year long, and then to be at camp with them, whether it's, I get to be the Bible teacher that week, or last year I was in a cabin, which I probably won't do again. Just saying. Well, I think I'm past that stage in life. But just getting close to those kids and loving on them. And I just think, wow, like for 8 and 9-year-olds, we have some really smart kids that come to camp, and they already know how to worship Jesus, and then just being able to show their friends that. And I think of 2 years ago, 8 and 9-year-old week, I have pictures of one of the little girls. She was just into worship. She was raising her hands, and she didn't care what anybody around her was doing, but she loved Jesus, and she was just going to be. And I think that, like, to have faith like a child. And so I love to see the little kids, that their week of camp, not having, minimal adults to be intimidated by, because, there's normally more of them.
Yeah.
But just, seeing the little kids.
Okay. Just a reminder for anyone who is watching, if you have a question that you would like to ask Brett, or have me to ask Brett or Sarah, you can comment that on the live stream on Facebook, and we will try to get to that here in just a little bit. Or if you ask during while we're having the discussion, I'll try to incorporate that in as well. The next question is, what would you consider to be your biggest victories in the past year? Or we'll just say this year in general. And along with that, what are the biggest challenges? I know that this year has brought a lot of challenges with COVID-19 and different things, but what would you say would be your biggest victory and your biggest challenges, not only moving forward into the summer, but even in the past 12 months?
So definitely, like you said, with COVID-19, it has been very difficult. We were really kind of stressing out about what camp would look like, not knowing, so many uncertainties. But then we serve a great God, and he shows up in the midst of this pandemic and says, wait, be still and know that I'm God. And so I think that right now in the, what am I trying to say? In the time that we are in, our greatest victory has been our Mount Hope Sunday. Because I don't think ever in the history of Mount Hope have we been able to raise that much money. And I just think about how much good it's going to be. And yes, in the midst of all this difficult time and how we've been feeling, super stressed, and what's the future going to hold, God's like, wait a minute, I'm still in charge. Yes, camp might not be able to happen this year, but hey, guess what? I'm going to give you this much extra money so that you can make camp look so great, so that in the future, when we can have camp, it's going to run and be awesome. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think this spring season has been, well, I know probably perceptions of what is taking place in Mount Hope is quite varied. It was a very difficult, stressful season of trying to figure out, like, what can we do? What's options that we can put on the table to consider moving forward. And it was filled with meetings with our board and our planning teams and other camp directors across the local area and the nation, even just trying to figure that out. And I think even as far as like the difficulties or the challenges we're up against, that's going to continue into the fall at least, and then we'll see how things progress from there. And so that's definitely still a challenge for us, is trying to figure out like our ladies luncheon. We were just kind of just talking about, like, instead of doing 2 sessions, it might actually be 3 sessions now, so we can minimize the numbers at each one of those, and just trying to figure out how all those pieces are going to come into play and work, so we can keep everybody safe and that kind of thing. But just exactly like what Sarah said, like that, we operate on a very minimal budget at Mount Hope. We always have, because we want every kid to be able to have the opportunity to come to camp, and we don't want to have to charge them a ton of money. So like, it's $80. If you're unfamiliar, it's $80 if you pre-register for an entire week of camp plus a t-shirt, and $100 if you register the day of. Like, that is very inexpensive. We don't think it's cheap, because you still get a quality camp experience, but it's inexpensive. And because of that, then our operating budget is minimal, because we're trying to keep the cost low. And so things that we've been wanting to do, again, challenges, right? Things that we wanted to do, we just didn't necessarily have the funds for. And so now, in a season where we have potentially more volunteers, because a lot of things have been canceled, now we actually have the funds to focus on some of those projects ahead of us. And so it's kind of crazy, but what maybe was the greatest challenge has now turned into be one of the greatest victories this year.
So with that, can you give us maybe just a 1-minute overview of what camp is going to look like? I know you've made the announcement that youth camps are canceled for the year because of that. So tell us what is actually happening on the grounds, and those who are familiar with the money that was raised during Mount Hope Sunday specifically, how is that being used? Just briefly.
Yeah. So we have a ton of projects on the radar. We have 7 A-frame cabins that we're going to be working on the support structures, replacing all of the decks, steps, and porches. So that in itself is a pretty huge undertaking. But then we're also hoping to paint the exteriors, the roof. We are going to hopefully reface the tabernacle, at least the shutters to start with, and then we'll see about the rest. Our Vespers area, we're hoping to kind of take a look at it and see what we can do for it. And then there's a whole host of other things. And so we say that because we are recruiting some teams from SCORE International, which has been a partnership that we've had since 2017 or 2018, I think is when we actually jumped on, right there in December, January. And we've been a part of that relationship, but we've not really kind of moved forward with what it could provide on both sides. And so we are really trying to push that this summer, of trying to start that relationship. And so we've already got in the works potentially 3 teams that may be coming this summer. Again, they're smaller in number, just so we can manage it safely. But they're going to help us with some of those work projects. And now we also have some local churches and even some local families that have said, you know what, 3 of us as families want to come and give a week. And so we've blocked out a week for just those 3 families to come and do projects. We have a youth group that's going to come one day. And then we have the SCORE teams, and then who knows where we'll move in from there. But if you are interested in jumping in and what we're doing, and I promise you, if you have any kind of skill set at all, we have a job for you. Okay. And so what I would encourage you to do, there is a interest form on our mobile app. So if you go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download our Mount Hope Bible Camp app, which if you don't have, you need to have already. So go download it. But as soon as you go to the homepage, one of the very first things you'll see is an interest form. You click on that, and it's just a real quick form you could fill out in less than 5 minutes. And it'll kind of give us an idea of what you would be, what dates you'd be able to come, maybe to help, how many is a part of your group, what skill sets you do have, so we can kind of tailor the projects so that we make good use of your time and it helps benefit us. All of that's on the app. So we're hoping to space them out. So again, that everybody, we're kind of following some of the guidelines put out with social distancing and yada, yada. but we're still able to move forward. My hope is that come September, camp looks the best it's ever looked, and Gary Rucker can smile. That's what I'm hoping. I know he would just love to see it if it was looking the way that we hope it to be in September.
Yeah, Gary's favorite words was "make it shine." So,
make it shine, maybe make it shine.
So what I'm hearing is if someone is kind of bummed because there's not camp for their kids this year, they could actually schedule with you through the app or personal communication.
Yeah.
And set up a time where they could actually not maybe come and enjoy camp as they normally would, but they could actually come and be a part of that in serving to make it what it can be next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I had a camper message me just this past week and was asking about camp. And I just shared with them, unfortunately, the news that we were going to cancel. They said, well, me and my family would still like to come out and help with the projects.
Yeah.
I was like, that's cool. Like one of our campers, knowing he wasn't going to get camp per se, still wants to be here and is willing to put forth some manual labor to be here and move us forward as a ministry. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So how, as far as mission engagement with Mount Hope or with the Mount Hope family, how can people or families or churches better help your ministry at Mount Hope and better help you and Sarah as missionaries at Mount Hope?
Oh my, that's kind of like really open-ended. I mean, it's everything from every spring. If your church doesn't collect food donations, that is a huge help to us as far as financially. I mean, you could participate in that part. Hopefully next spring, we'll be back visiting some churches to participate in Mount Hope Sundays, where your church will welcome us in and we'll share and hopefully lovingly take up an offering to help us in the ministry. You could volunteer. And I know hopefully once fall kicks back up, opportunities for that in kind of a more of a programming setting will start back. And but then there's also the giving. Mount Hope Sunday was just tremendous. Like before Mount Hope Sunday, I think you could probably count at least maybe on one hand, definitely no more than on two, of how many monthly supporters we had as a ministry. Well, after Mount Hope Sunday, we gained 41 reoccurring donors on Mount Hope Sunday. Like, that's huge. And so that opportunity is there. And in order to be able to give to Mount Hope, you can go to our app or the website, and it's mounthopebiblecamp.com/give. And you can have all the information for that. But I would, and Jonathan's going to smile at this, I'm also going to put a plea out for us as missionaries to consider supporting Sarah and I. I know, and I'm just going to speak very transparently. This summer, especially by September, we're going to have a shift in our income. And we really desperately need some people to jump on board and give some reoccurring gifts. And so it's pretty cool. Like this, actually, we just got notice that it was posted this morning. We are being featured and highlighted on SCORE International's homepage. So if you go to SCORE, intl.org, here in a second, I'll put it in the comments of this Facebook Live so you can go to it. But we are featured on the homepage, like me with a shovel, and I'm not wearing flip-flops. Like, that's pretty cool. And it'll take you to a link that you can read more about us. And then it'll also take you to the page where you could give. And so I just really want to challenge you. Like, if you're giving to missionaries like across the world, don't forget the missionaries that are here at home. We really, really, really believe in the ministry of Mount Hope Bible Camp. Otherwise, we wouldn't be asking, and we'd be doing something totally different with our lives. But because we're here, we really need your support. And so I want to ask you to do that. And again, we'll provide the link so that you can give and consider that. And so, I mean, those are a few ways, and I'm sure I'm missing a few more.
I just wanted to take a minute though to explain, because some people, when they hear, oh wow, you raised, $30 however many $1,000 for Mount Hope, oh well, Brett and Sarah get some of that. But no, we are two separate entities. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So there's Mount Hope Bible Camp, and then there's Brett and Sarah Wilson, who are missionaries at Mount Hope Bible Camp. So Mount Hope doesn't pay us anything. It's just two separate. So if you give to Mount Hope, then you're not giving to Brett and Sarah. Like Brett said, we are missionaries. Yes, it happens to be right here in our hometown. But we that's how Brett gets his paycheck. We have people who give monthly, and then SCORE, which is our mission organization, writes Brett the check. I hope it don't sound bad, but it has nothing to do with Mount Hope Bible Camp.
Yeah.
Like, we could be SCORE missionaries anywhere, but God has placed us here at camp. And so it's two separate. So I feel like some people, when they hear, oh, you made all that money for camp, that's great for Brett and Sarah, but it is great for us, just not personally. It's great for our ministry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll clarify that just a little bit more as well. They are SCORE missionaries to Mount Hope. And as Brett shared earlier, the camp fee is $80. And a couple of years ago, I asked the treasurer to figure out what the cost was for campers. And the cost for the campers is $140 a week. So we are charging less than what it costs. And that does not include any pay to Brett or Sarah, either one, because they do not receive any money from the camp at all. So good job, Brett. I'm very proud of you for actually putting that out there. And I would encourage you, I think it's difficult for people to recognize if they know them or their kids go to school with them or we go to church with them. It's hard to realize, hey, they're missionaries. He walked away from a teacher's salary to serve the camp and to serve our churches and to serve those kids. So giving them a one-time gift is great. I'm sure they'd appreciate that. But giving them a set amount each month means a whole lot more, because they know what they can expect. I mean, can you imagine if you went to your employer and it was a one-time donation each time that they were each time you were expecting a paycheck? It's very difficult. So I encourage you to do that. Brett, can you share in the comments the link to SCORE and how to give to you guys as well? And then go ahead and tell them that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, actually, both links are already there. The first link, scoreintl.org, is just the homepage, just so you can see the write-up on us that they're featuring just this week only. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you can help us share that out. It's only going to be up on the featured page for a week, but this will be a great time if you would help us just recruit some donors. This would be a great week to do that. So that first link takes you to kind of the featured. The second link is directly to our bio and the giving page. And so it's scoreintl.org/people/Wilson. And that'll take you to our giving page, and you can just, all the gifts through SCORE is tax deductible. And it's just really easy to do online, safe, secure, all that kind of stuff. So I would just encourage you, if you have any questions, as always, just shoot us a message. I know there's a few of our donors that their cards had the what do you call it? The date. They had to get a new card because
credit card.
Yeah.
Their credit card
Expired. Yeah, man, I couldn't think of the word. And so they were trying to figure out how to do it. We walked them through the process, and we'd be happy to do that. We just want to really put the plea out for you to prayerfully consider joining us in support. So if you have any questions, just ask.
Okay. All right. What is one of the most encouraging things someone has done for you while you've been on the field?
I think I'm going to steal John Louder's answer. John basically said that it was just notes of encouragement, messages, those kind of things. And then he even I can't think of any specifics offhand. Maybe you can, my memory's awesome, y'all. Sorry. Maybe you can think of this, but but just unexpected gifts. Like we had one of our donors one time give us tickets to a Reds game just to be able to take our family away from camp offsite for a few hours and just enjoy time as a family. That's encouraging. Just things like that have just been just a reminder that people take notice and that they are with us in this. That means more than I can probably even say. But those, I think for me, that's what stands out to me.
I'm going to go with in the last couple of years. What was the question again? Like, how should I word it?
How can people, what have they done to be something encouraging for you?
Well, the most encouraging in the last couple of years, okay, I'm just going to go to the last year and a half, has been those who have given their time, Jonathan and my father-in-law, to help make the missionary house look phenomenal.
I would agree.
Yes. It still needs to be finished, by the way. I'll put that out there.
That's our little plug.
I know one cabinet door still needs fixed, and Dave still needs to put up the crown molding.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'll
right.
call him out on that.
I have a spice rack that needs.
Yeah, that's the door I was talking about.
I have a mantle.
Oh, I forgot about the mantle. Yeah, good one.
A birthday
right.
pass too. Just saying.
Hey, you won't need heat for another couple more months. So.
Yeah.
It's not for the heat. It's for the pretty.
Okay. All right. So, I just encourage people, if Brett or Sarah, either one, or even the camp as a whole has spoke directly to you, don't be afraid to share that with them through private messages. I can't tell you how many times where the enemy might be fighting you in a specific place or something, and someone just sends a message and says, I got one this week and said, I was struggling this week, but I listened to a message, and it was one that I had shared in March, and they said, I was listening to that message and it really spoke to where I was today. And it was a kick in the pants to the devil, and told him to get out for me for that day, because God knew I needed lifted up. So don't be afraid to share that with them as well. How can we specifically pray for you? I know you had mentioned that your finances and some things that's going to be changing between now and September. So definitely that, but what are some other things that we can be praying for specifically?
I think another thing, just as a camp, as a ministry, is just that maintenance goes as we hope it does this summer, and that we'll have the teams. I mean, everything right now is still kind of tentative. It's in the planning stages as far as like confirmation with teams from SCORE. And I mean, it's looking promising, but nothing's been set in stone. And to be honest, to be able to do some of these projects, we just have to have the volunteers. Yeah. And so be praying for that. And then I think also just be praying for discernment and wisdom as we kind of figure out how fall is going to look. And then, because I mean, we would love to be able to provide some kind of a experience for our campers that have kind of missed out this summer with us canceling. We don't know what that's going to look like, and if that's even possible. But if we can, we want to do that. And so we definitely need discernment and wisdom there.
That's what I was going to say. It's just wisdom to know what to do next, like what God will have us to do next in the midst of all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we've talked about camp a ton and that ministry, but I want to switch gears just a little bit. Is there something that we can do right now, or the people who are watching or will watch in the next day or so for your family today or this week in this season? You're not allowed to say anything about camp. What is something that we can do for you guys as missionaries to help you, on the field or in the ministry this year?
Yeah, see, it's a lot easier to talk about camp, Jonathan.
That's why I told you wasn't allowed to talk about camp. I know. Did you get life jackets yesterday?
No, I didn't actually.
We need life jackets.
Okay.
Well,
so they need. Right now, I just happen to know that they need 4 life jackets.
Well, only 3. Aubrey has one. We got Aubrey one.
Okay. So they need 3 life jackets that would be kayak approved very soon. So that's one thing, but what's something else?
Well, if you're talking about things like that, like, is that what I don't understand what you're asking. You want us to tell people what we need? Like,
Well, just anything. So Brett has been asking the other
Okay.
people,
because
is there something?
personally,
I've got one.
Okay.
Buffalo chicken dip.
I was waiting for that. I fully expected that would be the first thing that you would actually say. But he's been asking, is there something from Mount Hope's perspective of other missionaries that they could do to help those missionaries right then while they're on the field?
yes.
And so what I'm saying is, you guys are Mount Hope. So how can we or other missions or ministries help you guys as missionaries on the field?
Okay, well, I'm thinking like right now we're getting ready to help missionaries by sending them boxes of books. Like that's how we're helping those missions, but that's for their mission.
Yeah.
As you can tell, we're really struggling to talk about it for ourselves.
So like, I just think like, okay, personally right now with our children, like, Aubrey is I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, Aubrey is really into Legos and she needs something to do right now. So if you feel like you want to give some Legos, come on, bring them. Is that like what you're talking about, Jonathan? Because I got nothing.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I actually just wanted the people to see how awkward it is for you, both of you, to ask people to help you. And that shows where your heart is, because like you said, it's very easy to talk about camp.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult. Now, Sarah does a little better job at this than Brett does.
But it's for my kids. It's not for me. Like,
well, that's true.
Like we don't really have, we need financial support.
Yeah.
Now, buffalo chicken dip, I'll talk about it.
But so I know this is, and we haven't talked about your kids that I love so much, but this year is going to be a shock for them too, because they're used to 500 plus kids coming through with staff being their next door neighbors. And while they're on the campground, they're there somewhat isolated with only a few families coming in at a time. So I know they got some bicycles and some different things that they wouldn't normally be able to have a lot of time with. And I wasn't kidding about the life jacket. So if someone wants to make a trip to Rural King or wherever, put your mask on, respect all that, and take them a couple adult and a kid life jacket. That would be awesome as well. All right. I had a question, and if anyone has any other questions, feel free to post it. I know we're a little over, but that's expected, I guess. Mike Maple, hi, Mike. We love you. Posted, you've been called to lead an organization with nearly 50 years of ministry in Southern Ohio. Do you ever find the responsibility overwhelming? So how would you answer that?
Probably only every day. It is a huge responsibility. And I think that's why, like, especially we have such a heart, because we can't have camp this summer, to make camp look great. I feel like God maybe has given us this opportunity to really push that. But I mean, Brett is doing other things as well. Like he is still doing discipleship groups. He has really amped up the social media with doing the cabin chats and the wise words. And, he has been doing a lot more on the computer just to try to still get the name of Jesus out there, with Mount Hope Bible Camp in that ministry. So,
yeah, I think for anybody in ministry, if they don't feel the responsibility, something's wrong. Because you're impacting eternity. And I know Mike's question is maybe pointed at Mount Hope specifically and its heritage, which is just honestly unbelievable. When you got names like Dale and Belva Beery and Suter and Harry Hoople and Jody and Beth Stevens, I mean, we're talking like some giants of the faith, in my opinion. And yeah, that it can be even intimidating at times, and definitely overwhelming. But I think the thing that, and it's a struggle, but I think that we have to remember is that this is God's ministry. Like, this is not Brett and Sarah's ministry. This is not the board of directors ministry. This is his. And it is going to be here as long as he wants it to be here. And so, now granted, that doesn't change, like, that we have to use discernment and wisdom and understanding scripture and even kind of regulations and guidelines that we should follow, and making sure that we are making the decisions so that it will last for years to come. But ultimately, it's a little freeing just to know and believe that he's a sovereign God that has it where he wants it.
All right. So for fun, going back to an early comment or question that Sarah said about doing an internship while she was pregnant. Did you have any specific times where she had a craving while you were in the middle of nowhere, stuck in a staff house, that you had to go get something for her?
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't remember this, but she's telling me frozen pineapple and green peppers. I think I do remember the green peppers. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my memory's awesome, Jonathan. So.
I just remember being in a camper, and I'm sorry if this is too much information for those of you watching. And I was a sick pregnant woman, okay, every day. There was no just first trimester being sick, okay? Every day, all day, I was sick, okay?
That's true.
We were down here by the
tool
shed in a camper, and that's pretty far distance from the restroom for a pregnant lady, okay? So the nurse was kind enough to give me a bucket for when I couldn't make it to the restroom, and my lovely husband here would hold my hair in the camper.
You gotta love it. The thing you do in ministry, right?
So one other just quick funny story. Brett, what's your favorite funny story from camp, or your time at camp? And that can be as a camper or a missionary there.
Oh, I can be as a camper too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now that gives me plenty of stories.
The time that Brad Colley.
Yep, that's it. That's exactly. Okay, so if you know Brad Colley, okay, this is yep. You hang the head as soon as I say the name. That's right. So him and I were always kind of going at each other. This was when Jody and Beth were here, and we were doing Vacation Bible School. Well, he was in the shower, and we were just kind of at each other. So I thought, I'm just going to sneak in the staff restrooms and take all of his clothes while he's in the shower, and just to see how long he kind of just waits and hangs out. And it's like, it was time for breakfast, I think. And
we're all sitting in the house.
We're all sitting in the house. Some of us are peeking out the window, and out comes Brad wrapped up in a shower curtain. And he's just kind of waddling to his room to get some other clothes. Well, then comes camp, okay? And Saturday morning, I wake up one Saturday morning, and I have no clothes in my room. My entire suitcase is not there. And I walk out of my room, and every piece of clothing I had was on top of the staff house roof. Yeah, Brad got me back pretty good. I'll have to admit.
So Brad won.
Yeah, that time. Okay. There's always a next time.
So we're going to wrap it up. We're a little over, but which Sarah knows, if Brett and I are talking, it's almost always over.
The girls are bad. No, Brett and Jonathan are worse.
But the question that I really want to end with you sharing is, and we talked about some of the needs, maybe some of the wants as well. But today at 12:15, as we wrap this up, how can people who are watching pray for not only the ministry at Mount Hope, but how can they pray for you?
Yeah, so I think the big thing there is just, again, discernment and wisdom as we move forward. That this season that we are currently in will be productive as far as maintenance is concerned, that we can make things shine. We want to be good stewards of what God has blessed us with, and that's part of the reason why we're not off trying to build new things. We want to take care of what's already here, and we have 7 A-frame cabins that need some foundation work, and so that's where we're going to start, and we're going to move on from there. But that this season is productive, that Sarah and I support will kind of move forward as well. And that just, I think that this year upcoming will just be just a fruitful year, a year that maybe even because of the current situation that we're in, people's hearts are maybe a little softened, or they're willing to listen or hear the truth about the gospel, and that relationships will just, I think that will maybe even come easy. We'll be able to build those relationships so that we have opportunities to share the gospel moving forward. I think that's just several, at least in my mind.
And I think like more on a personal basis, just that we can take this season and be able to invest more in our children.
Yeah.
You know, we've been given this time, I feel like, to be able to spend more time with them. We have already been able to have several more family nights than we would normally have. So like you said, Jonathan, our kids don't know what a summer without camp looks like.
Yeah.
So that is going to be new to them. So I would just pray for their little hearts that,
and they're going to process it differently.
Yeah. Just that God would help them to process it the way that they need to. And that God would send, you know, people in our lives this summer that would help our children with that. You know, I mean, they have several friends that I'm sure we'll see this summer, but you know, they too have made great friends at camp that they only see at camp. And so I think about our kids, but then that makes me think about all of our campers as well. Like, we have some kids that come to camp, and like I said, it's the only time they get to hear about Jesus, or it's a lot of them, they come and sometimes it's the only time they get 4 meals a day. Mm-hmm. And so I just think about all of that, like just to pray for the kids that we normally get to come into contact with, that we don't, that God will put somebody in their life that will be able to provide their basic needs for them. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys being transparent and sharing. I'm sure just looking at the comments, there's been a lot of people who have enjoyed that and will after we're offline as well. Just to kind of reiterate, if you are watching and you want to help, Brett said, if you have any skill set, I'm going to say, if you can breathe, you show up and we will have jobs. We have some very big jobs, but we also have some very small jobs, but they all need to be done. So feel free to message me or Brett, either one. I'm part of the maintenance.
Let me go ahead and interrupt you. Sorry there. Specifically in the next 2 days, we are trying to get the BAC, the kitchen, all cleaned up. So if you're a lady and you just want to come get some 6 feet fellowship, you can come over and help me clean up the kitchen.
All right. Yeah. And message us if you have a family that's interested in coming out and helping, working as a family. All ages. I know I have a picture. Actually, I was just looking at it. Sarah in yellow pants, and behind her was my, I wish I'd have shared it on here actually, but behind her was my son, and I'm guessing he was maybe 3 with a rake. So we can put people of all ages to work. So camp isn't over. It just looks different this year. So come and be a part of that. And as he said, the work that we put in this year can make an impact in the kingdom for years to come. Not only in the kingdom for your life, but in the kingdom of campers who will be there, you know, because of the maintenance and things that we're doing for years to come. So with that, I guess we'll conclude this at 1 hour and 20 minutes ish. And if you have questions, as Brett shared, please feel free to message him. Download the Mount Hope app. If you don't have Mount Hope, if you don't have the ability or a device that will run the app, and you're interested in serving, just give them a call. But if you have that ability, be a part of the camp, help be able to stay tuned in all the news releases and know what our specific prayers needs are and things by downloading the app, and it'll be a blessing to you throughout that season. So with that, Brett, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know how you wrap them up, so I'll let you take over. And thanks for everyone who watched, and for my lovely wife who commented and said she loved it. I'm not for sure what part that was.
I'm sure it was us.
Yeah, I'm positive.
It was me. She loves me.
But anyways, with that, Brett, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. I'm just going to stop the live stream. See y'all.